Well, I guess to start with, what's your name and what do you do?
My name's Steve Myles, and I am in some bands, and yeah, I run a small clothing label, and I work for the Leeds Tattoo Convention, which is my current job at the moment.
Awesome.
I do.
So, how do you think the music industry has been affected since the inception of the internet?
Well, I mean, I can only just about remember what it was like before. Our parents were in bands and stuff like when I was like very, very little, and like the way that they had to get gigs, they had to put tapes together, they had to like send them out to venues, they had to like call people up, cold calling mostly. Like when I first started playing in bands, like I guess like I had my first band when I was sort of 12 was when I played my first proper gig. But like I guess the first time that I ever sort of experienced the internet actually being a help for, you know, like the practical side of music was like, you know, being like 14, 15 years old, like going on like the Slipknot chat rooms or whatever, like, you know, like through dial-up and stuff. And like, you know, like I remember like first managing to like wangle a gig like in Birmingham with some dude that I met on there, and like, you know, like we went down and played in this practice room, and it was like really, really bad. The fact of the matter was is that there's no way that we could have done that, you know, it's like, you know, the only way that we could have done that before would have been like if we were to, you know, like sort of like just ring random houses in Birmingham and just hope that somebody might actually be able to like hook us up a gig somewhere else. For the actual practicality of like doing music stuff, it's like it's changed it completely irreparably. In order to actually get out and play music, like, you know, it's changed it for the better, like, you know, completely. It's so much easier to like contact people like directly. It's so much easier to actually sort of find slots. Like my last band, like, you know, we managed to get from like, well, the furthest out we ever played was Istanbul in Turkey. It's just like we would not have been able to get to Istanbul in Turkey if it wasn't for like Last FM and like MySpace and like, you know, like all this other stuff, because it's just like you know, we'd literally just went slamming through like, you know, just slamming through the social media and just sort of like, you know, contacting people on a whim and stuff like that. And yeah, like, you know, like we managed to get quite a long way out, and like if it wasn't for the internet, like that would not have happened.
So with the huge amounts of music and all the services and stuff on the internet, how would you say it's affected the way you share your music, either better or worse?
That again, it's a bit of a mixed bag, because obviously, you know, you can get a lot more out, and it's, you know, and it is a lot easier. But I mean, like, you know, on the other hand, there is such a volume of stuff, you know. Oh, right, so right, sorry, it's getting really hot. There is like, you know, there is like a massive volume of stuff out there, so I guess it's kind of hard to, you know, you do feel like you're swimming in like quite a big sea at some point. But I mean, like, you know, like for example with I think it's, well, I mean, like a few years ago, when we were doing the first couple of albums that we had, you know, like basically the only way that you could guarantee that the music could get out there was basically just to leak it yourself. Like we used to just put stuff up on like Mediafire and like Mega Upload, and basically just encourage people just to download it. Like, you know, I mean, like we had record labels and stuff like that, but like it was almost standard at that point, especially for like DIY bands, that it was just like you'd have a record label and people could buy your CDs or your vinyl or whatever if they wanted to, but if you actually wanted people to hear your music, and if you actually wanted people to talk about it, and if you wanted people to put you on shows, it was just like you just put it up and basically encourage people to steal it. And it was like just like, yeah, you're shooting yourself in the foot, not allowing people to just download your music. You know what I mean? It's just like making it readily available. Like was, you know, it's actually really good. And you know, like, and obviously there was sort of ways to like monitor that. You know, like through like stuff like Last FM and like Scrabble and things like that. You know, because obviously even if somebody's downloaded your music illegally, it's like, it still registers with like an audio scrobbling service, so it's like, you know, like you kind of get all your plays through and stuff like that. So it's whenever we leak stuff, it would be like, you know, suddenly your Last FM plays would go up by like 5,000 in 1 week or whatever like that, you know. So it's like, you know, it's definitely made it a lot easier to get your music out and about and heard. And then especially like now, you know, stuff like Bandcamp, where like, you know, you can even set up like small fees and stuff for downloading stuff. You know, it's like it's really, really cool actually. Like Bandcamp's great. Like, you know, a couple of bands that we got at the moment, you know, it's like a lot less active than I guess it used to be, and it's just like, you know, people are still like on a weekly basis just coming and buying the odd bit here and there. And it's really good, you know, because it's like that's I guess that's money that wouldn't have been coming in before. So yeah, really positive. Like very pro internet, definitely.
Right. So there's been a few scandals involving music, the industry, and the internet over the years, such as like Metallica versus Napster, and more recently Taylor Swift and like the Spotify stuff. Do you think stuff like this would happen less if the internet wasn't around today?
I guess just the sheer accessibility of the internet means that there is a lot more. Like piracy is rife and stuff. But on the other hand, like if there's always been the possibility for people to get music if they really want it, and like I mean, like I get in the case of Taylor Swift and Metallica, they can kind of, for anybody who ever saw that video of Lars Ulrich like selling his own like art collection whilst listening to Apocalyptica Metallica covers on some kind of monster or whatever it was, whatever that film was, like it's just kind of one of those things where he was like, Metallica, you can kind of keep it, like you're making plenty of money, like there's nothing to go on there. Like Taylor Swift, yet again, feel exactly the same about her. She's definitely like in the very fortunate few who actually get to sort of make a real career out of this sort of stuff. As far as like smaller bands go and stuff like that, we've had stuff up on Spotify for a few years, and it's like we haven't seen a penny from it. Like in fact, I don't even know where that money goes. I don't even know if any money comes in from it. And like it gets plays and stuff, but yeah, again, it's like, I don't know, like you want people to hear it or do you want people not to hear it? From a personal level, it's just like, well, I don't care. It's fine. It's how it is.
So you've obviously shared and marketed your own music in the past. What's your favourite method of doing so? And why is
that? Genuinely, I think there's still really something to be said for the playing gigs and selling stuff there. Like, people are so much more likely to buy in those situations. If people sat on the internet and they've got a choice between Bandcamp or just like finding a torrent or something like that, 9 out of 10 people are going to go for torrent. Like, it's like, and I mean, a lot of people have got a real principle with it, and they'll, and they want to support the bands, and to be fair, some people just physically can't afford it. Like we're in a time where like no one's particularly flush, especially people, I guess, that are sort of circulating around this kind of music scene. So, like I don't really judge people for that sort of stuff anyway. I still think that nothing quite compares to like going out, and if you nail a gig and there's like 50, 100 people there or whatever, then like you're gonna sell some stuff. I mean, like that's still the best way to do it. But I mean, like like I said before, like Bandcamp, it's absolutely fantastic. Like so much revenue comes through that for like sort of small and sort of like lower mid-level bands and whatever. It's really good. So like I guess like sort of consistently wise recently, like Bandcamp's like been our kind of personal favourite, just because it's kind of, at least it's got the kind of illusion of being like kind of for the right reasons. I mean, obviously it's all business at the end of the day, so it's like everyone's got their own ulterior motives. But yeah, Bandcamp for me, like definitely, that's where we're at.
Cool. So, with such crowded online music communities, what have you done in the past to make your music stand out against like other bands, like through the noise floor?
Just try and get better at whatever it is that you're doing, and like just sort of keep on smashing it. And like every time that you have one of those really terrible nights where you're just like, what am I doing with my life? Just sort of try and ignore that and keep on just keep on going. Like insofar as like standing out on the internet, like I know like a lot of bands that really go in for like the sort of press side of stuff, and it's perfectly legit and stuff like that. But I mean, like I just think especially you can just spend so much time like sort of really focusing on that kind of side of stuff, and and really hammering the social media and all the rest of it. If you kind of trying really hard, and if you're working hard and like trying to improve at what it is that you're doing, like more so than that, then I guess you probably stand a better chance of like doing something that people are actually going to be interested in. Because it's like like if you want to be a better baker, make more cakes. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to get a better baker by like sitting on Instagram for 6 hours a day. So it's just like I mean, like having said that though, I mean obviously it's got there are sort of other arguments to the other side of it, and then also you get these guys that are sort of like really kind of like heavy into their kind of into the sort of like the the kind of behind the scenes sort of stuff, where it's like loads of kind of like video diaries and blogs and stuff like that, and that's and that's great as well. But I mean, yeah, again, like I mean, is it really focusing on what it is that you're doing, or are you just kind of I don't know. I mean, like personally, I'd say that people should really just sort of just try and play loads, like, and that would sort of do better. But I'm like maybe trying to avoid the more sort of gimmicky sides of stuff, just because like I guess in the end it is just sort of a distraction from what you're trying to do.
The internet and the music industry has become so intertwined that the general public not only has immediate access to music, but for such low prices as well. From an artist's perspective, what do you think the ethical issues behind such accessible music are?
I've always been, or at least never been in a position where, like, you know, there's the sort of music that I've done is like never going to be like a big deal. Like, you know, it's never going to make like commercial success. I think like quite a lot of people sort of, you know, look at these thousands of downloads that the things have had, and they'll just be sitting there just going like, oh, if only I had, you know, 50p for each one of those. You know, it's just like, for me, it's a bit of a mute argument, because it's just like, you know, you never, like, at least the chances are, and like the way that the industry's been set out for a while now, like, you know, it's definitely a very, very small bit of cream at the top of the great big puddle of milk that sort of gets to actually, you know, sort of have like a life, you know, like supported by this sort of stuff. If people want to pay for music, then they will pay for music, and like, you know, I'd like to think that it sort of evens out. I mean, it probably doesn't even out as much as it should do, but you know, like, I'd certainly say that, like, compared to the amount of people that are going to hear stuff, and then like the percentage of that are going to have paid for it, is probably going to stay round about the same. It's just like, obviously there's a lot more people hearing stuff these days because it's so much more accessible.
Is using the internet to market music and organise events an efficient way of earning a decent living?
I know people that have like made livings from like promoting gigs. Like, I mean, obviously it's, yeah, again, it's like, it's not a guaranteed, because, you know, like you can put on like a really cool band that you really, really like, that you think loads of people that you know are really, really like, and you can put them on a Saturday night at a good venue and promote the hell out of it, and then still 20 mates might show up if you're lucky. Because for the clothing label, like, we had our launch party the other week, and like, you know, like, I was like dreading it, because I haven't put gigs on for ages. Like, I used to do it like not like as a full-time job, but I did it like, you know, there was a point where, so we had like this small place in town, I was putting on like maybe like 3 or 4 gigs a week. It was like, you know, it's quite like, you know, it was hard work, and it was like very sort of up and down, but yeah, like we had the launch party the other week, and like, you know, like loads more people turned up than we could have expected. And it's just like, you know, and they're like sort of relatively obscure bands as well, and it's just kind of, I don't know, you know, it's like one of those nights where it's all worked out. And it's like, if we could, you know, if you could guarantee like a night like that, like 4 times a week, then yeah, sure, you could make, you know, like, I guess you could make. I still genuinely believe that printing posters and printing flyers and like going to gigs and talking to people about stuff, and like, you know, really sort of like hitting that side of stuff, which I guess most people who, you know, are actually into music and into watching bands, like, will be doing by default anyway. So it's like, you know, that, I guess that's not really so much an issue.
Your main project right now is selling merchandise through an internet clothing label. Would you say that going online to buy merchandise is more popular than physical purchases right now?
I think people have sort of learned these days that like looking at something on the internet and how it's going to be in real life isn't necessarily the same thing. So I mean, you know, for example, like we sell like t-shirts and patches, and we got like a couple of hats and some like sticker packs, and like Tasha does like she's got like some art prints and stuff up on there, you know, so it's all. But it's like, you know, like sort of a kind of 120 pixel by 120 pixel picture on Instagram, like, can only really give you so much of a idea of how it is. And like, you know, obviously with Photoshop and stuff, you can really like make stuff look like really slick and like really kind of tight on the internet. And I think people sort of got used to the idea that that's. But I mean, having said that, you know, like on the other hand, if you want for the internet, you know, like we've sold patches to people in the States and stuff like that, and like we did some screen prints for that launch party, and like, you know, we just like, well, actually yesterday, like we like finalised the sale of like bulk sale of these screen prints to like some little record label in the States. And it's like, if we were up on Big Cartel, and if we weren't on Facebook, and if we weren't on Instagram, and if we hadn't put time into the Twitter and all the rest of it, it's like we would not have been able to do that. I guess as a conclusion, like, to the whole thing, like, I'm very, 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 very pro internet. I mean, like, you know, socially, like, it's a bit sad when you've got like 10 mates sat around at the pub, all sat on their phones, like, you know, probably talking to each other on Facebook and whatever, and like, that is lame, and that needs to be stamped out as soon as possible. But like, so far as this sort of amazing like global conscience and like just this complete melting pot of like of music and art and, you know, social interaction and like stupid cat pictures and like, you know, like whatever it is that people do on the internet, like, it can't be anything but positive. Okay, thanks for having me. Great, cheers.